Welcome to The Mystic Lens, a podcast by Current Collective Church where we explore the spiritual path through stories of transformation from real people in our community and explorations of Christian tradition through a mystic perspective. Our hope is that these conversations will help us feel even more connected to God, ourselves, and each other, inspiring us to live more expansively from the well of living water within. To learn more or connect with us further, visit thisiscurrent.org.
I'm happy to be here, Luke. Again, it's one of those days where I when I find someone who's aligned with what I want to talk about, to a point where I don't really have to overemphasize my points. It's just like you just know. I feel like that's the kind of conversation that could be had today, and I'm super excited, man.
Yeah, man. I the feeling's mutual. When you sent me your book and things, I was just like, this is gonna be perfect, you know. So. Yeah. A lot of people in our space, and just so you're aware, and you've been listening to some of the stuff that I've done over the years, but really just the people in the space are involved with this kind of conversation. So like a lot of people come from either like, I'm probably a broken record, but there's a couple doors that people typically walk through into our space. One is people who come from a Christian background, so they have a lot of like the framework and the lingo and the things, but they're, you know, we call it deconstruction. I call it evolution. They're moving into a different, more expansive expression of their faith, realizing what's happening in their life that's more mystic, experiential, personal. But they still have an awareness of that sort of traditional background. And then a lot of people come in through another door that is just they're spiritual seekers. Some of our people come from like a New Age community. They don't really have much of a Christian background. But they're interested in Jesus and his wisdom and some of the places that they've went to learn more about that. It's been, I don't know, we'll be modest and say it was a unique experience.
Yeah.
And all the other deconstructed people are like, yeah, see, this is why we're here, you know? So,
yeah.
So all of that to say is I feel like a lot of people are going to pick up what you're laying down today. And I want to bring people up to speed, though, and even for myself, because I don't really know a lot about your background and history personally. And so, yeah, what was your upbringing like? And where are you at in the U.S.?
So I'm actually in Annapolis, Maryland. So about maybe 30 to 45 minutes out from D.C., unfortunately. It's not the place to be right now in DC, but it is what it is. But Annapolis is great. I love where I live. I would say in my family background, when it comes down to faith, has always been more evangelical Christianity, in a predominantly Black church. But as you know, I grew up and went to college and graduated college and, get into the real world, and you start like kind of questioning a lot of the things that you grew up believing, especially from my background. I actually was in a private Christian school as well.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so if you come from that background, you already know kind of what I'm talking about. It's not just the indoctrination during Sunday service, but it's also the indoctrination during the week and making sure that your curriculum is in alignment with what's being taught on Sunday. So your whole worldview is just warped with ideologies that, in my opinion, if gone unchecked, it can be very toxic, because you see other people as the out crew or the other versus like, the same as you. You're thinking that you're on a mission to save all of these people, and if you don't speak up, that's kind of like a notch against you kind of a thing. So of course in that space, like, they won't ever admit some of the things, but at the same time, it's like when you look back at it, you go through therapy and you realize why you think the way you think, what triggers you in certain ways. You start to unpack some things like that in your childhood, which we can get into later. But overall, I come from that background. So when people tell me their deconstruction stories and I hear deconstruction stories, it's like I totally relate to it, because it's like once you see the truth or once you see facts and you see things lining up, you go through this whole like existential crisis where it's like, whoa, like, you mean to tell me Jonah didn't get swallowed? You mean to tell like, you know what I mean? Like all these things that you've been taught to like just take as true. And you, even as a kid, I had problems with certain stories that were in the Bible, how it was taught, and just like this veggie tale version of a lot of like theological frameworks. And it's just like, the older you get, you start to say, do I want the truth no matter what? Or do I rather stay blind and just hope that somehow all of this is still true down the line? And so what prompted me to kind of write this book was I actually went through, like I told you, like an existential crisis, later on finding out that it was some form of nihilism, where I started to just feel like none of this makes sense. None of this is real, actually. It's just like us making up stuff and trying to figure out how to survive. And I just started questioning everything. I went through a deep, dark depression for about a year and a half to two. Even had, these dangerous thoughts of just suicidal thoughts, and just wondering, what's the point of it? And so, during that time, I was just searching for anything, just stuff that makes sense. Like this, just thinking about, if this pastor told me this and this is false, there has to be a solution to why he thought this way. I started making excuses for them just so that I didn't feel like I wasted my time. Like there has to be something here, and he just might have made a mistake. Or is all of this like just a big joke? It was just coming to that point where I had to figure it out. So I journaled a lot. And then even my prayers just started to get super raw. Like it was at that point where I was like, either you're real or you're not. Like I'm tired of feeling like I'm talking to myself. Cause I think that's also the issue I was having. I was taught that prayer was a way to, they won't admit this, but how prayer is taught in a lot of churches is to get a solution from a being that you can't see. And sometimes you're not going to get an answer. And sometimes it's just about being internally grateful without anything happening.
Yeah.
And when things weren't happening, I was like, either he don't give a damn about me,
right,
or we have absolutely no idea what we're talking about when we're talking about prayer. And I feel like writing and journaling and speaking out loud things that I was frustrated with, especially going to therapy, it kind of gave me that strength to want to not give up on faith altogether. But it made me not afraid to question everything. So, I started one YouTube channel about 2 years ago. I'm actually going on 3. Kind of like you, I haven't been on that one in a while, like with your spiritual nomad, but like with this one, I had called it J for Yeshua. And that project was just really to question a lot of the things that, we were taught. And even the fact that when I found out, Jesus wasn't a Christian, it really, I was like, okay, so Jesus wasn't a Christian and he was a Jew. What happens to all of the Jews? What happens to the people who were killed during Nazi Germany? So you mean to tell me they can go through absolute hell on earth and then experience hell because they're Jewish? But for some reason, someone in Nazi Germany who proclaimed to be a Christian, they're in heaven. So it was just like those kind of questions I kept asking and not getting answers from the churches that should have had answers, or at least had the decency to say, hey, you know what? Those are some excellent questions. I don't know. I would have respected that so much more, but instead I was met with just deflection, met with don't question, God, ways are higher than ours. And then
how many times can you say that?
Yeah. And then I would just say, okay, so if God is love, that means love is God. So I kept flipping words. I'm like, time out. So you guys, I'm saying these words out loud. Either the way I'm saying it doesn't translate to English language, or you guys are gaslighting me. Because you're telling me that God is love. Love is God. How does that translate to genocide? How does that translate to so much violence that we see portrayed in the Old Testament? Or let alone the very person, Paul, who persecuted Christians, converts over to Christianity, but somehow the people that he killed and their families go unaccounted for, and we're not able to understand how they view Paul. So if they were against Paul and they said Paul is nothing more than a Hitler during their time, they're expected to agree with everything he's talking about. If not, they're not truly believers. So it was just like, it was just, I was going through this whole mental warp of like, these are humans writing things down. No shade in that, but that's nothing different compared to if you and I wrote books, and then 3,000 years later, they found our books and they tried to combine every last page together as if it's one cohesive message. We are two different people with two different upbringings, two different ideas of who God is, how we relate to the world, how we relate to our families. And if we put out a message, we want people to read it as it is in our context. And I feel like the older I get, I'm realizing the Bible is used more as a spell book, more than a mirror to reflect humanity.
Dude, that's so, yes, all of that. Yes. And there's so many things I feel like I could riff on from all of that. But I'm curious, when did this start to come to a head for you? Like when, like you were talking about the dark night of the soul, and that I feel like is just such a necessary part of the path. And I'm to the point now, I think we're around the same age. I'm 35.
Yeah, I'm 36. I'll be 37 in December.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be 30. Yeah. We're just like a year apart. I'll be 36 in November. So it's like, so are you a Sagittarius?
Capricorn.
Capricorn. Okay. All right. Just curious. Yeah. So for a few different reasons, I shouldn't riff on that, but I can riff on that shit for a long time, but I digress. But it seems to me that the older I get, the more I don't trust people who haven't gone through a dark night of the soul. And I was just talking with someone the other day about how, I'm a pastor's kid, and I'm the, truth be told, like I moved away from across the country, and my dad wanted me to be the successor of his church. And I was the youth pastor for a while, and I was, honestly, I was experiencing nepotism. Like other people got fired so I could have a place, so he could put me in, and I don't fault anybody, whatever. But the point is that it's like, I have made a distinct decision, sometimes intuitively, sometimes out of insecurity, whatever it might be, but I'm in a different place than what I was, what people wanted for me. Yeah. And so I was talking with someone the other day about how, I could easily have been just on the road to that, been pastor of a church, have staff already, and just kept the train going, whatever. And so whenever I look at people that have done that, I have to kind of check my own heart for judgment, because I'm like, if I see that someone is just believing everything that they were handed, and all their job and everything is everything that's been just handed to them, I don't believe they're operating with integrity about the human experience. I think if there is any there, it's borrowed or shallow wisdom. Maybe that's judgment. I don't know. But my point is that, like, you mentioned the dark night of the soul, and I want to emphasize how important that is for a shift in people's lives, because that means something real is taking place.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't have that, if you just get handed everything, kit and caboodle, and you just believe it, like there's not a real sense of transformation that's taken place in somebody's life. And so when somebody brings up their dark night of the soul, I'm always like, I want to talk about that. Well, probably because I'm Scorpio or whatever. So I kind of like death and rebirth stuff, whatever. But like, I'm just curious about, during that time, you mentioned that you were you've been dating your wife for like since '07, and I've been with my wife since '07, and you've been married and stuff. So like, where in the timeline was that when you were going through that dark night of the soul? And what were some of and you mentioned a few of them, but was there like some initial things that you were like the house of cards was falling because this one was pulled?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I want to say, man, it started, I think the seed of it started in college. And it kept going on and off. So it would be like, as soon as I started questioning certain things, I got extremely scared because it was like, I said, it's no turning back if I pull back these curtains. There's no turning back. So I said,
you knew that intuitively.
Yeah, intuitively. I said, if I go past this, there's no way I can unsee certain things. And so I just rather not. And so I would say from college all the way up until I would say maybe 26, 27 specifically, because that was a few years after being married. Because me and my wife have been married for 10 years now in October. And I just started seeing patterns of church attendance, and seeing behaviors, seeing inauthenticity. I probably screwed that word up. Most people that I'm seeing in church are acting. They're not being themselves. They feel like they have to be on maybe 100% of the time. Otherwise, you're not, you're not showing enough faith. You're being a Debbie Downer or whatever. Yeah. So when I saw that people were scared to actually admit when something was wrong, when I saw that you were discouraged from asking certain questions, or even if they said that you can ask these questions, if you just agree to disagree, either you're in error or you are risking influencing other people.
Right.
And so your questions weren't really welcome. They were tolerated until they beat you into submission with just theology of their own. Yeah. And so I would say around 2020, that's when the pandemic hit. And I think that's when it really hit me. I was like, I don't believe in Western Christianity anymore. It hit me that hard because I just thought about what we mean hell, eternal torment. Yeah. And I did too much research about where it came from, where it originated within the Catholic Church, and how this scare tactic was induced on not just the Catholics, but it was passed down to the Protestants. And I always found it funny that, Protestants will pick apart Catholicism and say, hey, we don't do this, we don't do that. But this hell thing, we're going to keep it.
Right. So weird. And original sin and not, it's like,
yeah. And so then I look back on what the Jews believed when Jesus was here and he was a Jew. They did not believe in eternal torment.
Right.
If, at most they had Sheol, which was just a place everybody went. That's where the souls were, or in Abraham's bosom. And then there's some section of Judaism that believe in reincarnation. So, and that's evident even in the Bible.
Right.
When they talk about the spirit of Elijah, there's certain elements that are clearly Eastern traditions that are illustrated easily in the Bible that we overlook because we have this Western philosophy on everything, and colonization. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
But it's when you start actually seeing the facts, and I question why we're not learning that in the church, but the pastors are learning about it in seminary. So then it's like a filter of what information we think our people are ready for. And if the truth is the truth, it shouldn't matter when we're ready for it.
Right.
It should be a library you should be telling us everything and giving us the autonomy to decipher what we believe based off of the facts, not based off what your opinion is. And you're telling us that, oh, this is how you should believe it. This is how you should learn. This is how you should study. I think that is the issue I have, and that's what I've had to wrestle with over these years. Is just that we weren't taught how to critically think, and I was playing catch up. And over time, when you just start asking these questions and unpacking layer by layer, you realize that you are only this set religion because, number one, that's what you were brought up in. Had I been in a predominantly Muslim culture, I would probably have been Muslim.
Right.
But when you think of the only reason you're a set religion is because this is what was handed to you, and you have no clue on the backing of it, where it came from, you just can't help unsee that stuff. And I would say it was finalized for me like maybe near after the pandemic, where I just no longer consider myself an evangelical Christian anymore. But to this day, I identify, and I kind of allude to it in the book. I refer to myself more as a Christian humanist, where it's I have more of a I would say, if there is the end of someone's soul, I lean more towards a nihilism. And even with a nihilism, it's not based off of what religion you chose. I truly believe that if there was someone who was destructive as a Hitler or whatever you can think of, the most heinous person that you can think of, they just cease to exist. I mean, I feel like if we take even just the human perspective, the worst criminal on earth right now, you couldn't stomach to see them tortured, brought back to life, and then tortured again. Typically in the death penalty, you kill them and they're gone. It's not a torture. It's inhumane to torture people who were inhumane to other people. Mm-hmm. So when you start putting two and two together, it's just like, the reason I was afraid to not be an evangelical Christian was because of hell. Mm-hmm. And if God is love, and the opposite of love, the opposite of fear is love, then what am I really scared of? Am I scared of hell, or where is this fear coming from? When I start digging past that fear, I realized that the only fear I had was in my phone. Like, as soon as I stopped looking at the BS on YouTube and all the scare tactics of these preachers and these podcasters preaching things that they're unaware of and can't give solid answers to. If you have never been to heaven, if you've never been to hell, how can you guarantee without a shadow of a doubt that someone who doesn't have the same theology as you, that you have the privilege to know since you were a kid, that somehow they're going to be burning for eternity and you in paradise? So yeah, I just decided that, my Christian faith stops at following the teachings of the Master Jesus. And mm-hmm. that is where it stops. And my only assignment here is to love my neighbor as myself, and also love your enemy, which also it makes me wonder, if you're supposed to love your enemy, then why is there war? Why in the Bible was there genocide? So when I look at the genocide in the Bible, I don't make it any excuses for it. I say that humans are doing exactly what humans have always done, even to today. Yep. Use God for an excuse to kill other people.
Yep.
And just because something's in the Bible, it could definitely show you what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally.
When you see the genocide in the Bible, excellent. Let's not repeat it. So yeah, it did teach you something. It taught you what not to do, not what to make excuses for. Because what we're seeing in real time today is exactly what happened in the Old Testament. Absolute genocide of people who have nothing to do with the Lord at all. And I've come to terms with my belief systems and knowing that there's certain people that disagree in, my old evangelical space. But then there's some people that do agree with me, but they will say, I've been doing it all this time. I just don't want to take the chance. And that's okay too, because for me, I would much rather someone be sure of what they believe than to just believe what I'm saying, because then that's the same thing if I, was forced to believe someone else's belief system. So for me, it's like, as long as what you believe in does not harm someone physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and it's something that's motivating you to love people harder, that's all I could ask for. But outside of, what I truly believe, I don't believe that Jesus died on the cross like a blood sacrifice.
Right.
I think he showed us to what extent we're supposed to love people. And that was laying down his life for people who didn't give a shit about him.
Yep.
And that right there is worth my allegiance.
Yeah.
So
it mirrors back our own human. I think one of the most fascinating things about the crucifixion is what humans are seemingly just conditioned to do. Where we are, like, to your point earlier, you mentioned the Old Testament, there's even things in the New Testament that's, excommunications and all this other stuff. I mean, it's all still happening today, but I think, I don't think, probably like you, that, and I talked about this at one of our services, that, I don't think that, God needed to kill his son so he could have the blood, so then he could be okay with all of us. But he doesn't really actually like any of us. He only likes Jesus. So when he sees you, he doesn't see you. He only sees Jesus, apparently, But then if you read in Revelation, the bloodthirsty God is never satisfied and he's coming for more. Right. When does it end? It doesn't. But one thing about the crucifixion is showing us our own just incessant need for violence and for harm, for the things that are pure and good, and our own capability that every single one of us has towards doing heinous things. And we all do that. And we all have the ability to also change our mind when, even after he's crucified. And there is a paradigm shift. I love Richard Rohr's definition of salvation, of paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, truly this was somebody, and it's like, we are always in that opportunity to change our perception of reality each and every moment. And that's the invitation, I think, to us. So I'm curious with that, like, in the Dark Knight, and you were sorting out a lot of things theologically, and even in your book, you mentioned a lot about hell and different things. That was one of the first ones for me, by the way, too, was the thing coming undone with hell. And I remember reading, I was super into conservative Christianity. I liked, like, Mark Driscoll back in the day, asshole shit and stuff. And I was real into that because I loved underground music scene. I still do, the hardcore. I played drums in a hardcore band, and it just felt aggressive. And my dad was very, like, Rick Warren, Andy Stanley kind of guy, and I was like, I like heavy stuff, and Driscoll felt heavy, because he's like calling people out. And I'm like, I was into that for a while. That started to crack open. Yep. And then Rob Bell came back on the scene for me again. And that dude. Yeah. Dude, yeah. And he literally came online with the Robcast, and I started listening to that, and I'm like, this guy's brilliant. I can't believe I talked shit about him. And then it was like, yeah, but hell was the first thing. But in that time where this was starting to crack open, is I remember reading scripture that was kind of like the slam dunk verse for hell. And it was, talking about where Lazarus was, when he's telling the story of him going together, and he's like begging, the rich guy's like begging him just for a little water on his tongue or whatever. And this is supposed to be like the scene that shows you exactly what it is. And I remember reading that, and me and you, I could just tell we're both artists and creatives. And so that's just, it's not our nature to just take it hook, line, and sinker, Yep. I remember reading it in my office back in the day, and I was like, I don't see what I'm supposed to see here. And I remember making a conscious decision to see it because this is my tribe. Yep. And I wanted to keep repeating Driscoll because I got a platform at too young of an age. Honestly. And I just could regurgitate him. So anyways, like, hell was definitely the thing that was like simple to me to see, like, there's no way that this divine being is going to send anyone to a place forever indefinitely. And Annihilationism was the first thing that came up for me. I got a copy of Edward Fudge's book. I forget the name of the title of it, but he wrote this book about, basically, if for those who aren't believers or whatever, their soul just ceases to exist, whatever. And then it started to evolve more from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a pretty Eastern informed cosmology at this point. But in that time, though, I had a daughter, and I remember a lot of things shifted for me because something in my life had changed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kids?
Oh, so I don't know when you're going to air this, but my wife is expecting. So
congratulations, dude.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be in April, though. So, yep.
Yes. I'm going to air this very quickly. And if you need me to edit that out for family or whatever, I can do that.
Yeah. We probably want to tell them in September. So,
okay. Well, I'll go back through and splice it up here. But, dude, congratulations. Life changes with that. So in that, like, time of sorting out the theological categories, how was your soul? Like, how were you in that time, and your relationship with your family, with your wife? Like, how were you doing, other than probably quite pissed off would be my assumption.
Yeah.
But how was your soul during that time?
I would say, like, especially you're talking about during the Dark Night of the Soul kind of situation.
Yeah.
I would say I was in complete avoidance and hiding. I mean, my wife, like I said, she is like my rock, because she knew everything going on with me during that time. Like, I tell her everything. So, like, during that time, it was like, me opening up to her how I'm feeling today, her checking in on, because I work from home. So, she works for the school system. So, like, she would, text me throughout the day just to make sure I'm good, blah, blah, blah. My head's on straight. But it was just me feeling like I have to put on this mask to not let people know that I don't believe a lot of this stuff anymore. And I had to say certain things or avoid certain conversations just so that it didn't get awkward. Especially, things, because it's just to give you a perfect example. For me, the only reason I'm not an atheist is because I can't logically explain how something can come from nothing, and how things are intelligently designed, and things have order and seasons and stages and methods. Anything that's made out of accident cannot be that methodical. So I out-logicked myself out of atheism.
Have you seen the Pete Holmes clip about that? Do you know who Pete Holmes is?
Yeah. It was about the creation story and things like that.
Yeah, he's a stand-up comedian, and dude, I'll send you the clip. But yes, it reminds me of that.
Yeah, so it was just like one of those things where I couldn't go all the way, but I was definitely agnostic for a great, and even to this day, I consider myself a believing agnostic. I'm choosing to believe as much as I can, everything that I can see, the proof that I have. At this point, I'm just surrendering and saying, I'm hoping that this is good enough, kind of thing. But I would never tell someone who doesn't believe that I have the 100% answer. Like, that's impossible, because none of us know what happens after this or how we got here in the first place outside of just the fetus in the womb and you're coming out. Like, we have as much as we can explain.
Yeah.
And so I take life with that humility, and realize that I don't have the answers. And during that time when I was trying to process everything, it felt like, you're, when I said putting on that mask, it just felt like everybody was in motion, or they were in some type of dramatic play on stage. Like, they're playing the part of this Christian, playing the part of this employee, playing the part of this friend. No one felt genuine. And so the only person I could trust was my wife during that time, because I was able to bear everything about what was going on the inside of me to her. And I knew she would never judge me on what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And so,
Dude, it's so good to have a partner like
yeah,
that. Just by
especially
the
during
way.
that time, man.
Yeah.
And so I would say, later on in life, closer to when I started writing the book, and I also was getting therapy during that time, I started, really unpacking, some traumas that I thought I don't say thought, I really didn't know. It just came up. I was doing this, accelerated eye movement therapy that helps unpack certain things from your inner child and things that could have happened to you in the past. And, and then later on, I found out some news with my family that I didn't know about. And that triggered me. And I had a whole panic attack. And all of this was just happening. And then you had deaths in the family. So all of this stuff was just happening all at once. And I just didn't want to be around anyone. Like during that time, like even with friends, I would be there, but I wasn't there. Like if I was out with friends, I was just literally existing. Like, oh, we're going here now. Okay, we're going here now. We're talking to these people now. Like I felt like I was just in a video game and I was just playing it,
Numb. Yeah.
Because anytime like my game could be over. So why get, get too involved or care too. And I noticed that too, like before therapy, I was this kind of person. If I found that someone was sick that was very close to me, I would drift away from them. Like I wouldn't call them, I wouldn't text them because I didn't want to feel anything. Because when, I would say I'm all over the place here. I told you I got so much. I'm trying to fit it all in.
Dude, it's all good. Yeah.
I remember like the biggest death that ever happened in my life was my best friend who committed suicide while he was in a holding cell. And that hit me hard. And so ever since that particular death, I just I try to distance myself from people because I said at any moment they could be gone and I don't want to feel like this anymore. So if, I just detach myself, act like they never existed. It's just how my mind was working to keep from being so attached to humans because people were just dying and I had no explanation. I was afraid of death. I was afraid I was next. So I would be super scared to do certain things. I was paranoid. My anxiety was going through. I was a guy who never had anxiety. And now I'm having anxiety. And I used to wonder why people were so anxious about things. And now I'm that person that's so anxious about things. So it like to answer your question, long story short, during that time, I felt like a character in a very bad movie. That's how I felt.
What was the first dawn of light, if you will? Like after that, did that come through thinking falling into place, or was it a feeling? Was it experience? Like what was the thing that really began to give you a little bit of hope again?
I would say just like the scare tactics and, the bad messaging online from, speakers, lecturers, pastors. The same thing happened with finding people who actually knew what they were talking about. Like I stopped listening to the doom and gloom. I started listening to people with more hope in their voice, like your Richard Rohrs, your Rob Bills, even your Tim Mackies. I mean, I know he's not like all the way on my, view on theology, but he always stayed true to like biblical literacy. Like he didn't try to put his opinions on a lot of things, and it gave me more hope and faith in that, like I could still have have a faith without fear. I live life with fear almost being equivalent to faith. Like I have faith because I'm scared. I have faith because I don't want to burn. Now it's like I can have faith because it's that's how we're wired.
Yeah.
If you don't have faith, you will be a nihilist at the end of the day. When I saw where that gets you, I had to actually see what it looked like to not have faith. To the very bottom of no faith is no faith in humanity. And I said, I don't want to feel like this. And it was just me trying, if I can illustrate it, it was almost like Jesus was here with nothing but trash all over him. And I was just spending months and months and months trying to just dig him out of it until I just saw him. And it was like, he never left. It was just, I fooled myself in believing that he said all of this stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of it, you're just subject to your surrounding and people that care about you. Like, I think too, like, I don't think people were malevolent, like in their my indoctrination of things or whatever. Like, people were doing the best with what they had, you know? And it's like, I've had to learn, I don't know if you're familiar with A Course in Miracles, but I've been revisiting some of that and this idea of forgiveness. And forgiveness, not even for someone doing something else, but forgiveness for my own perception of me thinking that they're doing something to me. Like, it's complete wholeness, like dropping back down into complete wholeness. Everyone, even what we perceive to be wrong or bad, like forgiving it all the time. And I forgive everybody for the things, because everybody's just operating in their own conditioning and their own programming with what they know is best. Even like my own PK situation, like my dad had a real transformative experience in the Jesus People movement that changed his life from one that was going down a very destructive road to a good one. I can't fault him that he like then got with the program of all of that, because it ultimately did mean a better existence for him, and he was just doing the best he could with where he experienced. And that's why I always bring people back to the mystic expression. People are usually only operating from their experience, even if it's filled with a lot of indoctrination. There's still something that's been real to them that keeps them justifying that framework, that mental framework, and that worldview, you know? And so to segue back, though, I'm curious. I don't know if I got something loud going on around here. I apologize. But you mentioned about going from fear to faith. And I think that's it's something that is so important, I think, in people's lives, and to even recognize that their faith is it's masked as fear. Like, it really is fear dressed up with a different costume on. What does faith then look like for you now? Like, how do you express that and understand that and integrate that into your life?
I think how I see faith now, it's less of a religious dogma version of it. Like, perfect example, like even now, my wife and I, we found a new community finally, after years of not going anywhere. And
necessarily, that's necessary though. I would throw in.
But she found this place online, and I won't plug them here because, again, we're still dating. The church, we're still dating. So I'm gonna give it a year before I say, hey, this is where I'm at forever. But one of the things that caught me was that then the tagline was, "This is a church for people who don't go to church." And so when I found out why they say that, it's because most churches in more of the conservative background, if you are a non-believer or someone who's not a Christian specifically, you may be welcome as, a visitor and thanks for coming, but the overall agenda is to convert you. That's the overall agenda. Not to break bread with you, not to give you community because you're coming from a bad place, or maybe you're just curious and you got questions, whatever things may be. So this particular church, when I heard the language like our atheist friends, our agnostic friends, our Muslim friends, our Jewish friends, when they're relating to people as not the other, and people who want community and want to learn more, when I found out that they don't even accept offering during service, when I found out that like there is no dogma that they hold, it's more so of telling you how following Jesus actually is beneficial. It's not a or else situation.
Right.
So even how they see, like I said, it leaves space for people like me, even if they do believe in a literal hell, it's not their motive behind having people at their church. They're focused on loving community, giving everyone space to have their opinions. And like I told you before, I don't believe in a eternal torment, but I can respect someone who does, and their motive behind being loving to someone is not to recruit them to be a Christian. It's to show them by living this way, it can create heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And whatever your perceptions are about the afterlife, let that be in your head and not that be a way for you to draw fear onto someone else. And how I've seen it work in just real time, when you are unconditionally loving to people and you're always a joy to be around, or if, you know, you're always there for someone, 9 times out of 10, they're going to just respect you and want to be around you and wonder why you're so different from everyone else. And then they're going to just ask more questions about what you do, what you believe, and who you follow. And hell never comes up.
Yeah.
And when I saw that can be a way of living, I said, okay, I don't have to denounce Christianity. I can just change how I was practicing it. And I realized that, you know, even the early Christians didn't believe in eternal torment. So it's when I think me saying, hey, no, I'm not going to let past circumstances push me away from my first love. Christianity was my culture. And even though I disagree with an aspect of it, that doesn't stop me from believing in Jesus. And once I came to terms with that, it encouraged me to be more vocal about it. And I realized that every, you know, seeker of truth, every, you know, great teacher or prophet, they spoke out against the masses, whether that be the government, whether that be the religious authorities. They were announcing a different way of living, even within their own culture or religion.
Yeah.
And they were shunned, or they were killed, or they were excommunicated. But that didn't make what they said any less important.
Right.
And so I had to come to terms with, if I'm going to do this for real, I can't wear the mask anymore.
Right.
And so that's Only Us is literally pushing the message of, when I say Only Us, it's not just saying it's just us humans on Earth. And I've always made that clear, because I feel like everything we experience is because of the source. Science is here because of the source. So it's almost like we're here together trying to figure this out. It's no us versus them. It's not Christian versus Muslim, Christian versus atheist, Muslim versus Jew. It's literally us in this system that has taught us that we are divided.
Yeah.
And I feel like your podcast, you know, the whole mystic thing. When I was in the shower, I don't know why everything that I think about profound either is in the shower or around the fire pit. But yesterday I literally was thinking about like how the UN, right? United Nations. And I Googled it, it's about 193 participating countries, and
either could probably work.
yeah. Yeah, so like the countries that are involved, right? They are from different cultures, backgrounds, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But when they all meet up, no matter if they have a disagreement with another country, the purpose behind that conference is to make sure that humanity, the globe, everyone included on this Earth's planet, like making sure that we are killing each other, throwing nuclear bombs on each other, coming up with different global agendas so that we're all still connected as a human race, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, within these countries, there could be turmoil, there could be disagreements, but whoever's representing that country has to represent their country at the UN with poise, with dignity, with an understanding that they're here to collaborate, right? But they're not saying, oh, because I'm in the UN, I'm no longer a part of my country. Like, no, you are representing your country, but you're trying to find a way where your country can collaborate with all of these other countries. So I thought about that and compared that with the mystic lens, because if I come from a Christian background and someone comes from a Muslim background, someone comes from a Jewish background, Hindu, Buddhist background, what would it look like if we all embraced our own cultures, but came together, put the things that did work in our past, that didn't work in didn't work in our past, that did work in our past, and decide how do we move humanity forward with our cultures? Mm-hmm. What parts are making us fight? What parts are causing war? What haven't we checked in the last thousands of years? There's things that we write down now and we find out 100 years later that they were wrong. But somehow, because something's 1,000 years old, they go unchecked.
Right.
We don't think about how the human brain is developed, what we found, what we discovered. These people didn't even understand what germs were, and we are supposed to believe everything they said happened.
Right.
If there was a demonic possession, they couldn't have had like some type of mental illness that we know about now. So it's just certain things that when we get new information, we have to then compare it to the information we were taught, and we don't erase it. We just improve it. Yeah. And I think that is what the mystic lens should be about, not erasing culture, but just evolving it, elevating it, and making sure that no matter what we believe, it's not at the expense of annihilating another culture.
Right. Right. I think that's good. And that's so much in my heart and intention. For years I was, and I still love using the language of finding the golden thread throughout all the traditions and seeing where they're the same, articulating much of the same things. But then I got to this point where I realized, but I'm kind of robbing them of all their uniqueness and the specialness that they are. It's like, because there is a lot of similarities between, Jesus and Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. There's a lot of similarities. I mean, they come from one comes from poverty, one comes from being, a king's son, but their intention is a lot the same. But also I started to see, but they're also very different, and appreciating the differences. Right. And the differences ultimately are still working themselves towards that same end. Even Buddhism and Hinduism are very different in terms of even their understanding of the cell or the soul. One understanding there is a soul, Buddhism believing that there's not one singular soul, but they're all bringing you towards a sense of non-attachment and back to a sense of unity with Buddhism wouldn't call it God, but, Brahman or the, unitive consciousness, whatever. But to your point, like, I like that analogy because it's like it honors the uniqueness of each and all the tension that comes in that uniqueness, even in their own little sect of where they exist. Yep. But whenever they represent that in a larger spectrum, it is able to be viewed through a golden thread to where they're similar, and understanding that like there is a contributing voice here, even in the messiness and the tension and the stuff that isn't resolved.
Yeah.
You know, because I think like so many times we think that peace has to always mean like complete resolution. That's not true. Like reconciliation, it can be there, and the walls of hostility can be brought down, as Paul said, but there can still be different operating modes.
Yeah.
You know, that's okay. It's peace means that we are, like you were saying earlier, agree to disagree. Christianity can't seem to get their head around that, but that really should be our way of being.
Yeah.
Like in deconstruction, like you said in your book, like about not destruction, you know, but it's deconstruction, because in deconstruction circles, there is a very much like about wanting to tear everything down, and then the church shouldn't exist, and Christianity. And it's like, you get to a point though, like I am very okay with very traditional evangelical churches existing, because that's where some people are at on the path. That's totally fine. I don't need them to not exist.
Right.
You know, appreciate them for how they're serving people that I wouldn't be equipped to serve, you know, and whatever. So anyway, I just feel like that's a really good analogy, dude.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where it's at. It honors uniqueness, but yet brings together that unity that's seeking to be had through it all, you know?
Yeah.
Are you doing okay on time? I know that it's...
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm good whenever. Yeah.
Okay. So this leads into this notion of only us in your book. And I want to give space for that. So with the intention for your book and the wisdom that you're trying to impart to other people from your experience and what's happened in your life and the things that you've sorted through, sorting through maybe still too, right?
Ever evolving,
Dude, it's always there's a reason it's the beginner's mind or the child mind, you know, maintaining that curiosity. What's like a big, and there's a lot of things that you write about, but if you were to just be like, my work, my book, only us, you mentioned some about it, but if you were to say like, if I could help people move just a one step forward in this, if this helps people in this one step, like what's your like biggest feeling of like, yeah, like that's what I did this for. Like, that's why I set all this aside. Like, what does that look like in integration in the life of another person?
You remember that scripture where the disciples were trying to hinder the kids from, coming to Jesus, and, because they thought that they were, bothering him while he was like teaching the masses or whatever.
Yep.
That always stuck with me, because I can just envision like, kids, they always like ask questions like, why this, why did he do that? And why, right?
Yep.
I kind of relate to that because whenever someone says something, I'm constantly picking it apart. I'm like, why do you think that? Okay, because you think that, you got that from somewhere else. And it's like this rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
And so throughout this book, the main lesson is that God is not intimidated by your questions. And for years, I thought that just for me having questions, just for me doubting, that was grounds for almost like blasphemy, almost like me not understanding how someone got here or this theology or whatever. And I can't mentally believe it, because I either don't understand it, number one, or it's logically not making sense to me.
Yeah.
So me having those doubts, it scared me, right? But over time, I realized that God is literally holding my hand as I'm questioning humans.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
And it almost makes me feel like I don't need that person's permission to ask this question. And I'm so free at it, because like now when I pray, I don't really do this formal, like, now I lay me down to sleep. You know what I'm saying? This prayer where it's like so formal and you hope he hears and all this. Like, no, I talk to God here's the funny part. My wife thought I was talking to somebody in the shower one time. That's how crazy it is. She's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "Oh, my bad." Like I that's how intense it is, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's why I'm not scared anymore, because I just know. I just, it's to be still and know that I'm God. That's like literally ingrained in me now. It's like, even when I'm frustrated, or if I don't understand this or understand that, it's like I'm so comfortable with God that I'm okay with him knowing I'm mad at him. I'm okay with telling him all of my grievances. And I'm also happy to thank him for everything too. Like, it's like a relationship with someone means that you have a relationship with them. You get mad, you get angry, you get pissed off. You know what I mean? Like, there's no relationship that I can think of in my life where I was not mad at that person.
Yeah.
And just because you get mad at them, or you don't understand them and you disagree with them, it doesn't mean you stop loving them.
Right.
I disagree with half of the decisions God has made when it comes down to a lot of the stuff in this world. And sometimes I'm wondering, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But then it's just like this peace that I get because I let it all out. And it's like a child like screaming at his parent, and the parent just hushes him. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to placate to God's ego just because I'm angry with him. I didn't have to fake like I wasn't angry. He let me, say what I wanted to say, get it out how I want to get it out, with not the best language.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he knows that I'm talking to him. At first, I wasn't even talking to him. And now it's like, when you have that relationship, you are not afraid of humans. I don't care what people think about my relationship with God.
Right.
Because I know him. I experienced peace when I wanted to kill myself. There's nothing you can tell me that the path that I'm on is wrong. Because at the end of the day, there was a time where I didn't want to be here. And now that's all I think about, is wanting to be here. And I know I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if you saw my music, my handpan music, but people ask me how long I've been playing the handpan. I never read music. I've never had a musical background. I literally saw this guy named Malty on YouTube who plays the handpan, one of the best handpan players out there. He even played like 5 handpans at a time. And I fell in love with the instrument. I bought my first handpan last year, and now I'm mastering it. And it's like I come up with melodies that I've never heard of, and they just come out. Like, my wife would tell you, she has no idea how I'm playing this music. Like, she's the one who has a music background. She knows how to read music. She plays the piano, and she doesn't even understand the notes that I play on this thing, and how I'm knowing how to make whole songs and count bars or whatever it is. Like, I don't even know the vernacular of, like, how, musicians learn music or play music. But by ear, I'm able to play this instrument, and I started playing it during my depression. And it's just like one of those things where, like, this to me is a miracle.
Yeah.
Because even as a kid, I was jealous of people who could play the piano or play the drums or play the guitar or the saxophone. I always want to be that person who can play an instrument. But here I am in my depression, and they, in the scriptures, it said, what father wouldn't give their children a good gift? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like, I never realized that my inner child always wanted to play an instrument. And now it's like, I'm going to I'm getting paid through random yoga studios to like collaborate with them, and like literally getting money to play something I just learned how to play last year by myself.
Yeah.
And I'm mastering it. It's like God winking at me. See, it's like the rules don't apply. Like,
Right.
Humans made up all these rules.
Yes. And when you open yourself up to that, it's something that's coming through you. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And that's the thing, is like the ego is not a part of being the one in charge or of any of it. It's opening up. I don't know if you like much of Rick Rubin and his creative act and all of that.
I have that book. Yep.
Dude, it is like Rick Rubin is like a freaking I don't know, man. He's some sort of, I don't know, sorcerer or something.
Like all I'm gonna say, if there's a Bible number 2 later on in life, like thousands of years from now, that book is going to be in there. Like
100%, dude. That's it. But it really is you opening to channel something through, and it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. It's that it's happening. And I think even relating that back to faith is like, we all talk about the peace that surpasses understanding, yet we're all obsessed with having to see how to understand it. It's like, is peace there or is peace not there? You'll know a tree by its fruit, you know? And it's like, when you tap into alignment, which righteousness means in accordance with. So when you're operating in accordance with divinity, things just start to come out of your life that are in tune with the infinite, because that's how alignment works. You're dialed in. And so you find the handpan in a dark time of your life where things are dismal and you don't even, and that's the very thing that it's the whole like story all the time is it's the stuff that is the hardest thing, the person that you don't think God should pick is the one that God picked. You know, it's all the stuff, and but it proves itself to be true beyond needing it to be in a orthodox doctrine. It's like, like I'm opened up, I'm bringing healing to myself and to other people, and I'm being used as an instrument for the divine. What else more do you want? That's it. You know,
you said something key. It's just like that. And to answer your question from earlier, like when did I start realizing I didn't have to be fearful? I start just understanding what Jesus was saying. It said, if you love me, follow my commands. And he says, if you love me, just obey what I say. And that's love your neighbor as yourself. You do this, you are knocking out, you can't kill someone if you love them. You can't steal from them if you love them. You can't commit adultery if you love your spouse, or if you love the other person who has a spouse. Like, loving your neighbor as yourself keeps you from having enemies to not love.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's so simple, and we've overcomplicated the message of what Jesus was talking about in the first place. And we made it into this magical prayer that you have to say in order for God to accept you.
Right.
But all he is saying is to love your neighbor, and every culture is capable of doing. I just feel like it's not about converting to Christianity. It's about converting to the idea that we have to love one another. And that's what Jesus taught. And by default, you are loving Jesus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because it's the same Christ that inhabits everyone. I think, and it's no longer, there is no more in or out, or even Paul. Like I've made amends with him over the years, and it's like he has some really awesome stuff to say that I wrote off for a long time, but his mystical stuff of like, there's no male or female, there's no Jew or Greek, it's just Christ is. And when you realize that within yourself and you recognize that in another person, you're looking at the one that I was telling a friend this the other day. There's only one son, and I don't mean a guy named Jesus that lived in the ancient Near East around Galilee. There's only one son, the cosmic Christ, that is expressing the one son in the many. And I use a gender term right there, but it's not that, as you know. It's the one Christ, the Logos, the offspring, expressing in the many. And you realize Christ in you, now you're tapping on the hope of glory. And you're just seeing that in the eyes of every single being that you're talking with. Sometimes it's more foggy and cloudy, even in our own life or in another being's life. But our job is to help clear the fog within ourselves and those around us. And we do that first by taking the plank out of our own eye, so we can help see the speck in another's, so we can all help awaken. I think the eye is an absolutely great metaphor. If you're thinking about the eye, you know, like that's what we're doing. We're helping each other wake up to who God's been in us the whole time. And there's no need for external conversion, whenever you realize your internal identity, the realization of who you are, and that there really is no difference between any of us. There is only us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
so good, man.
Yeah.
So as we kind of land the plane here a little bit, with the book, and I know that you're with a publishing company that really focuses on a lot of these topics and stuff.
Mhm.
If you feel comfortable, if you want to, like, what was that like being a part of it seemed, okay, on the outside looking in, it seems like the process that you had of publishing this book and getting it out there is in the voices of many people that are really having this sort of revelation. What's that been like for you to publish a book in a community that sees you for who you are and your message?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, let me just back up and kind of let you know how the process was in general, and then my experience with it. But you know, I had, before this book was even a thing, it was just a collection of journal writings and converting them over to videos, like stock footage, kind of, skits or whatever. But the writing itself was this person named Keith Giles. He's a co-owner of Choir Publishing. But he liked, some of my writings. And I had no idea at the time, that he was a co-owner of Choir Publishing. And he liked it so much that, he said, hey, we like to, publish this with us if you're interested. And then I researched what their, the views are and everything like that. They're pretty open to everyone's belief systems.
I like his Gospel of Thomas thing that he just dropped recently.
Yeah.
I'm into all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of gave me like that space where I didn't feel like, okay, if I write something, they're going to feel offended and tell me I have to change this or change that, because I came in saying that, this is not a Western evangelical Christian book.
Yeah.
So just that off the gate gave me like the creative freedom to be able to express everything the way I wanted to express it. But when it came down to the company in general, this is kind of a smaller publishing company, but the good thing about them is that like it gives authors that freedom to go about the book the way they want to go about it, because you're getting the majority of your ownership with this company. And then their own agenda is to publish it for you. They're not really trying to make this their own book. Like, so everything you want in it, you get your own editor to make sure, it's polished and everything and ready for publishing. But as far as your voice, the way you want to present your book, they leave all creative control to you as the author. So this whole process for me, it just happened. Like, I don't even think it really happens as smoothly as it happened for me. And that's why it's hard to like kind of give advice on how to be a published author, because to be honest with you, the biggest hurdle I would say for any writer is to just write. You know what I mean? Because like for me, it's just like, even if it was another publishing company, I think our biggest hiccup is that we overthink it. We think that like, people aren't going to resonate with it, and you're trying to make it perfect before you even submit it.
Yeah.
And when I had that freedom to be able to just, work through the kinks and get everything done on my own time schedule, and they were ready to publish it when I was ready, I think that was the key. And like through the whole book, I mean, you really hear my voice. Like in some memoirs or, nonfictions, you kind of hear this detached voice where it's like the person's trying to sound super polished and perfect.
Yeah.
But I made this intentionally to sound like you and I are across the table getting coffee.
Yeah.
Like I wanted the reader to feel like I'm there with you, asking these questions, and we are trying to figure this stuff out, and we're calling out the BS together, kind of thing. But at the same time, giving compassion for those who have not arrived at that way of thinking and understanding that, as long as they're not causing harm to other people, they're on their own path as well. But it's also giving the space to people that feels like they have no voice, like their questions are always being deflected. They're not giving a true platform to question things that they've been questioning since they were a teenager. So I'm going to bat for people like that. Like, I'm not afraid to ask these questions. If you're going to pick on anybody, pick on me. Don't pick on them, pick on me. I'm asking it for them. And so that's kind of the angle I wanted to put out there, because I know that maybe 50 to 60% of people are in some of these spaces and they are literally thinking exactly what I'm thinking.
Right.
And they are afraid to let any of those thoughts out. And I just wanted to make it a safe space for people to, push back, like, it's like, even if you disagree, I mean, that's the point of this, to actually have the conversation, because we are avoiding obvious topics. And as you can see, as you get the West Huffs and you get all these other theological people that are trying to defend the Christianity faith, one thing I do respect about West is that he's not afraid to say he doesn't know.
Yeah.
That is the new wave of Christianity, where we can't feel like we, number one, can't learn from other people. And number two, where we feel, free to say, you know what, that's a good question.
Right.
Like, and I think that is what I'm trying to get people to see. It's okay not to know the answer. We're living literally in a world where we don't know how we got here and we don't know how we're going to leave it. But we're taking our religions as safety vests, and we're hoping that our vests are going to get us to the right destination. But at the same time, I wouldn't dare take someone else's vest off and force them to wear the vest I told them to.
Right.
So it's more like, let's lock arms and figure this out.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the voice behind, like, I would say that's the voice for the whole choir publishing. It's all these voices telling their experiences and hoping that somehow we can find some type of middle ground to kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah. I think that's good. And, you found, or you were found, and were given the freedom to do that. And that's what I wanted to really just, highlight there, is that, you are able to share in your own true voice. And you mentioned about authenticity, and even finding church community that has authenticity and everything. And I think that's what we're hoping to do in our space, is to reimagine the possibility of what church or spiritual community can be. And you got to be around people who you can just actually be you and not judged for it in any way, shape, or form. And so I'm grateful for you to be able to have a place to share your wisdom and your perspective and openness. And dude, this has been really great. Anything you want to leave people with as we close out the episode today?
Yeah, man. First and foremost, I just want to thank you, Luke, for having me on this. Like I said, I knew that coming on this, it was going to be easy for me to open up and kind of tell my perspective on things. But if anybody wants to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Jaxon Phoenix 88. If you wanted to get my book, it's all available on Amazon, Kindle, and paperback. We are currently working on an audio book. I didn't realize how long the engineering kind of takes, but it has to be perfect for Amazon to accept it. So my team's working on that. But it's available, Kindle, only us, paperback, Kindle on Amazon. And other than that, man, I'm just here ever learning, man. Like, maybe 2 years from now, there's something else I learned and I'm evolving there. But I know for certain, no matter where I'm going, no matter where I'm headed, it's like a child holding his parents' hand and asking questions. What's that? Why are you doing that? Why are they doing that? But never letting go of the hand that's protecting me from all the nonsense. It's like I feel sheltered, I feel grounded, and definitely not going back to where I was. So it's all forward moving from here.
Not supposed to, man. It's progression. It's where you're going. Alan Watts once said that you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. So if some more stuff drops and you do something else in a couple of years, we'll have another conversation. You'll be like, here's all the places that I was not didn't like, and now it's this or whatever. So we'll revisit it. So stay in touch, everybody, and see how it goes and shakes down over the years. So appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much for carving out time and sharing with everybody today.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.